Hello, Debi Stickeler. It is great to have you today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And
Thank you. Nice to see you.
yes, it is all the way from San Francisco.
San Francisco, yes.
We're on a plane to be together. Go figure, you know? So, Debi, let's cut right into it. What's been your biggest obstacle in your life and how did you get over it?
Well, I think the biggest obstacle was my divorce. And I think I always have a very positive attitude. I always have. I've always found a gift in everything, no matter what it's been. And so that's how I always start, knowing that one day, after all the tumultuous things are going on, I will be at peace and I will look back and find out why it happened, or even if I don't know why it happened, that it'll serve me in some way. And I always hold that through everything I've ever been through. So just knowing that one day I'm going to look back and say, on some level, this is here for a reason, and it's going to serve me in some way, it keeps me going.
So, in the midst of your divorce, you were able to say that. You were able to say,
Yes.
one day it's going to really get. Did you get any kind of support? I mean, you are yourself, of course, a counselor. Did you get any kind of support or use your tool bag of tricks more or less because you are quite a seasoned counselor?
No, I wasn't a counselor at the time. I had done a lot. I had been a coach for runaway kids at one point in my life, and then I bartended a lot. So I've been a lot in public and that kind of thing and dealing with people, but I didn't have this practice at the time. So I did reach out and find a fabulous woman in Marin that helped me through all this. And this is actually why I do what I do now, because she really nudged me to do this after all the things I've been through and with her support.
What other things have you been through if you wanted to share any with it?
Well, I had a health issue for years. I had a seizure disorder. And so I had lots of seizures, emergency room visits, that kind of thing. And then I had to have brain surgery. So, and then I was on medication for years after that, which caused me to have 3 miscarriages.
Oh.
So it was a lot of things. And then after that, I found out that my marriage was an illusion. So it was kind of this nonstop train wreck for a while. But there were lots of moments in between that were fabulous. And even during some of the tumultuous times, I always smiled, I always laughed, I had fun. Like, it wasn't a horrible life, but there was a lot of challenges.
Well, yeah, I think that for me also, I had a long-term marriage and then got divorced. And I would say that it wasn't like I was miserable every day of that long-term marriage. It was just that overall, it was something that we needed to both let go of as after many years. And I'm very grateful because there's a whole new life and I bring myself in a whole new life. So, you know, go figure.
Yeah. See, mine was different. I had a really good marriage. Like, we were together almost 18 years. And especially he was very, very supportive through my health issues and then the miscarriages. And then we had this absolutely fantastic being come into our lives. And that made everything, it was just, everything was getting better and better. And then one day I found out that my entire marriage was an illusion. That from the beginning of our marriage till the day he told me he'd been going to hookers and everything. And he just wasn't the person I knew. So it was shocking. So I was in shock for a few years. So it was a little bit different than just not, like, I thought we had a great marriage and so did everybody around us, but it wasn't true. It was an illusion. So that was challenging. That was really challenging. For years, that was challenging.
How would you tell somebody who is going through or for whatever reason has been betrayed? You can be betrayed by a girlfriend that you think is... I've had that happen, actually. What would you say to somebody who has that gut level trust broken?
Well, it takes time, but like I said, one of the things I kept doing on a daily basis is saying I knew it was going to be okay. I knew it was going to be better, and I knew I was going to grow from this. That I knew on some level, I believe that on some level I was experiencing this for my growth on this planet, And that's what kept me going. But it's really self-care and self-love, and do everything you can. It's the one time in your life to be selfish. Now, I had a daughter, so I had to, the other thing too I did, and this is a really good trick, is because I was so down and I felt like I was really kicked to the ground, I didn't have a lot of self-worth and self-esteem. So I used my daughter. I would ask myself, what would I tell her? Because I couldn't do it for me, but I could do it for her. And that was one of the greatest tools I learned, that when you have somebody in your life that you love and you'll do anything for, think about them. Like, what would you tell them? Well, of course you would tell them to do this and that and the other. And that's how I got through. I would think about, what would I tell my daughter?
Beautiful. And it's interesting you say that, because when I got divorced, my self-esteem was in the gutter, even though I had wanted it, etc. And what I did is I got a picture of myself when I was in kindergarten. And
Mm.
Jody, I promise I will never leave you again.
Mm.
Personal integrity in many ways for many, many years. And I didn't know who I was anymore. And I promised that little girl, just kind of, it was interesting, kind of parallel, because
Mm-hmm.
I said, honey, I'm mommy now.
That's great. I mean, I share that with my clients too. If you don't have kids, if you have a dog, a sibling, anything, and like you said, your childhood self, is to, what would you tell them? Because it's amazing. I remember my therapist that I had at the time taught me this, and I had, my body was like all scrunched down, and she would say something, and then she'd say, well, what would you tell your daughter? And immediately my back would go up, and immediately my strength would come out. And I'd say, well, I would tell her. And then eventually we laughed about it, because she'd say something like, well, do you want me to pull the daughter card on this one? But I'm telling you, I share that with a lot of my clients, because it really does, it does help. We don't always think about ourselves with the same importance. So to get there, if we can model it with using somebody that we believe deserves it, then we eventually believe it for ourselves.
And I love the way you said self-care is not selfish. And at any point, and here you are, how old was your daughter? Was she young when you got divorced?
She was 7.5, almost about 8 when we separated.
Ooh, that's terribly young.
Yeah.
You really didn't have the luxury of going to the spa whenever you wanted, or
Mm-mm.
class.
It was challenging, and then I, we had, she was with her dad a couple of days, and I had been her primary caretaker basically, and so the loss was just incredible. So she would go to his house a couple of days a week, and I cried for months and months and months the first year, till I could, get some strength. It was very, very challenging. It was challenging for her too, but again, I kept making her the most important, and then I was coming up to meet her. Like I eventually came up to meet that.
Wow. And how is your daughter now? She's what? She must be in her late 20s or
She's
something?
25 and fabulous. She's super bright and caring and compassionate. We have a fabulous relationship. There's not another being on this planet I could love more. She's
Wow.
wonderful. She's done a lot of it on her own. I've supported her, but it's her own wisdom, her own journey. She's amazing. She said to me when she was about 19 or 20, as hard as it was, Mom, this whole thing, I wouldn't be who I am today if it hadn't happened. That's pretty good at 20 years old to be able to articulate that.
Absolutely. It sounds like she's very wise beyond her years.
She always has been. Yeah.
And that's really quite a gift. And I know that the biggest legacy we can have is be thrilled that our children are turning out to be good people, good in heart. And I think that's, in my mind, success.
Yes. To me, that's the biggest success. I think feeling good, being able to get every day, have a nice part of the day successful. I think our society has made success very different than I think it's meant to be here. That's why I really love Abraham Hicks. Esther Hicks talks about that kind of thing. It's about feeling good. When we feel good, we're good to others. When we feel good, we're successful at what our society thinks is success. So it's all about getting to a point where we can feel good and have every day have a gift in it somehow.
What are you doing to feel good now during this very different stage of our history?
Well, I actually think that we needed to shut down as a world, kind of. So I think it's a little bit purposeful. And if, I mean, I have compassion for people that are sick, and I have a lot of compassion for people that have lost people. So I don't take it lightly. Like I know it's serious in that sense, but I think it's just the time we've all stopped the lives we had and we started to question. I mean, most people on this planet aren't that happy. We kind of work, make our money, you know, weekends or whatever it is for people. And so I think this stopping has really changed. I don't think we're going to come back as the same world. I
Yeah,
think it's going to eventually be a better, more compassionate world instead of such a competitive world. And it may not be in my lifetime, but I think heading in that direction. I think it's been purposeful because we've needed to halt. I mean, life has been very challenging for a lot of people on this planet.
yeah, and I also think that, when this happened, I said to somebody, I feel like, like we're Noah in the ark. I mean,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
our ark is unfortunately this thing that's happened. And it's interesting that our country is lagging behind everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's not without reason. Maybe we've got some more cleaning up to do in our act.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I believe so.
I think it's,
It,
yeah, it's gone.
I remember the first time I was in England, seeing how old it was there and just how people were. Nobody asked you what you did for a living. I was there a number of times and nobody even cared. It was about me as a person. And I remember coming back to the States and thinking, I feel like we're the children, like we still are this mature child-like society kind of thing. And so I think that's part of the reason that we're showing what's going on in our country right now. It's how we handle things.
Yeah, and I hope that there will be that kind of thing. And I think it's like you're talking about and insinuating it's from the inside out. And as we do that, and also for me, I know it's willing to be vulnerable, willing to say
Mm-hmm.
answers, willing to say, there have been times I felt lonely at times. There's no question about it. And
Mm-hmm.
this, I mean, I usually work out of my home anyway, which I love. There have been times just that I felt lonely. And
Mm-hmm.
that when I shared that with people, it didn't seem quite so overwhelming or odd, or then I took out a lot of judgment. What are you doing feeling judgmental? You got so much in your life. Be thankful, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. Well, vulnerability is actually very powerful. People are afraid to be vulnerable, but when you can be vulnerable, it actually shows a power in you. And everybody's experiencing this on a different level. There's days I've been very sad. There's days I've been really worried. And then there's days I've had a peace that I haven't had in years. It's just one day at a time because we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know what's happening. There is loss. But it's also, there is something happening that I think is really needed. And I think that's where the peace comes in, the trust, the faith that this is all going to turn around into something that's going to be a much better world than we're in right now. It's kind of like we've kind of been almost destroyed in a way to rebuild. That's kind of how I feel some days. But with that, there's going to be all kinds of emotions. That's just real. And we have to honor those. We have to allow those.
For me, it's like one big grief. Because
Mm,
I've been in grief before. Sometimes I'm just really okay when that's like, okay, I can understand it, blah, blah, blah. And then other times it's like, what?
mm-hmm,
Up and down cycle.
mm-hmm,
It's evening out more. I think that when we have curveballs, things happen when people won't wear masks. Or here in Houston, where we've had this explosion of sickness, and I know in California lately they
mm-hmm,
have too in California, and we were doing so good.
mm-hmm.
We were going down, and now it's turned around. So I let myself feel that, and at the same time, I'm always reassured when I get on a Zoom call and I see somebody else, and they're like, "I felt that way too."
Mm-hmm.
I think that we just focus in on another interest completely.
I didn't hear what you said before. Another what?
Another interest that we might share.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, that's another thing. This is connecting people in a different way. And it's also, to me, it's really showing the importance of having faith, that we know things are going to work out, that we know we don't have to always know what things look like. We just have to trust that they're going to look, when we get out of our own way and we trust, things show up for us. The evidence shows up for us.
I love that. And one of the things that I've been doing lately is Jeopardy. There's this online Jeopardy. Some local guy put it together and whatever, and it's this free thing. And I never even liked Jeopardy. I never even liked it. And I said, Jody, open yourself up. And it's opening myself up. It sounds so like mundane and everyday, but it's like opening myself up to say, I never would do that. I'm doing it. And it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
In doing that action, I'm showing my hope. I'm my hope.
Mm-hmm.
Saying it. And that's why I make myself go.
And it's really important too, like you said, that it's not, we keep, we say a lot of times, oh, that's nothing, or it's just a small thing. We have to stop doing that too, because everything propels us forward. Everything can be a positive step forward. It doesn't have to be these major big things. The more we concentrate on that, the more things like that grow. Just little signs, like I keep my eyes open all the time. Like even if I see a like candy wrapper, that like has a word on it, I'm like, oh, that's what I needed to see. That kind of thing. Like we just have to keep our eyes open and be hopeful, and it'll show up for us, regardless of our circumstances.
Yes, I really believe that. I'd love to know, what are some of your favorite quotes?
Well, one of my favorite quotes is from Marilyn Monroe, and it's, I'm selfish, impatient, and a little insecure. I make mistakes, I'm out of control, and at times hard to handle. But if you can't handle me at my worst, then you sure as hell don't deserve me at my best.
Wow. And why does that jump out at you? Why does it hit your heart?
I just think because especially with women, we are so worried about all this kind of thing, and we try to please everybody. And this is kind of being like, if you either like me or you don't kind of attitude. So I when I read that years ago, I thought, I love that, because it's kind of making you stand up and say, yeah, this is who I am. And if you want the best of me, you have to take all of me. And that's okay. And then the other one is different. It is, and this is actually really my favorite. It's by Hafiz, the poet Hafiz. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole world. Isn't that a great quote?
Wow. Would you spell the name of the person who wrote it?
It's Hafitz.
Okay. Hafiz. Wow.
That's one of my favorite poems or sayings.
How come?
Hmm?
Why? Why is it?
It's the unconditional love. It's the saying that not asking for anything. Like it's, like it says, even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. The sun does what it does, and it provides all this for us, but it unconditionally. And I just think that's the shoes we should walk in the best we can, is that we do what feels best. We do what's authentically us. We do what we're good at all the time naturally, and we just don't need anything back to recognize that. It's just who we are.
That is so true. And it reminds me of a saying by Maimonides, what is it? The highest form of giving is anonymous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Same thing, same concept.
Yeah. And
yeah.
It always stuck with me.
Mm-hmm. And I believe the healthier we get, the more we don't care so much about ourselves. And I don't mean in a negative way. I mean that we need to have things happen. And so we automatically just are of service. So it's like, that's why it's so important to be selfish, to get to a point that you feel good, that you feel happy, because I believe from that place, that's when we really serve, and unconditionally.
Well,
because it feels good to serve. It feels good to help. It feels good to,
No, please go on, please.
No, that's just, it's like, so the happier we are individually, I think that's the natural thing that happens, because that's what really feels good. When we are narcissistic or we're wanting, that comes from the ego and the insecurity. And we have to fill ourselves up. I think the happier we are, the less we need.
Well, I have to put in a plug for you because I just blindly contacted you. I mean, you're far from me. I'm in Houston, and you were so kind to me to get on the phone and let me know some of your experience, because I thought, my God, this perfect stranger, gazillion miles away, is taking the time, and you took time for me. We were on the phone. It must have been even an hour that you were.
Yeah, I think something like that. Yeah.
Gave me so much hope and so much information, and it was validation that I was. I can't thank you enough, because you didn't have to do that. And you're talking about being of service, not getting anything back, and that just struck. It really, really struck home with me. And I always, and I told you that, but I really appreciate that.
That was a great conversation. I enjoyed it as well. It was really, really a great conversation. I mean, I do think we talked for over an hour, and it went by in a very, it was really quick. So when you sent me this information, I was very happy, because it was nice to be back in contact with you. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, it's nice. It is nice. Like I said, it's nice to see you, literally see you.
Yes, literally.
We really do exist.
Yes, yes.
Wow. Is there any parting words that you'd like to share with us? Anything that comes to mind?
Just that I think everybody just has to take deep breaths and become just conscious. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. And really, really, I think the biggest thing I share with all my clients is to stop the judgment. Judging ourselves or judging others does not serve at all. We can always find, like I said before, a gift in everything. We can always find a lesson. So to me, it's much better to walk in the world that way. And if we do find ourselves judging, don't judge that we're judging. Just kind of look at why we think we have to do that, or just stop it and change our energy. But I really do believe that that's one of the biggest problems with every client I see. And I know with myself, what I've gone through is the self-judgment. And as a result, we judge others because we're not secure. So when we can catch ourselves and give ourselves some permission and give ourselves some love and give ourselves some forgiveness, I think we would just have a better world. I think we should teach this in kindergarten.
It's funny you say that. I was a kindergarten teacher before doing.
Oh, really?
And I would find that I would teach kids really life lessons a lot. Probably couldn't catch on to at the time, but maybe hopefully would kind of stay in the back of their brain. And what you're saying reminds me of a yoga teacher of mine who said to me, Jody, breathe. You're already there. The posture, but I thought I have it in my car, and that's just what you're saying. Breathe.
Yeah. Just stop and breathe. And the judgment is what kills us on all levels, ourselves and to others. And it only comes from fear. It only comes from self-loathing. It doesn't come when you're in a good place. You tend not to judge at all when you're in a good place. So it's a way to get to a good place, even, is to stop the judgment.
Yes, absolutely. And I can't believe it. The time's gone so fast. You got to come back, because there's so many things we can talk about.
Yes.
I love it. And thanks for inviting me to your home today. I appreciate it. It's been great visiting with you.
It's been great talking to you too. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And next time you have to come over to my house.
There you go.
Bye.